Hi and welcome to the We Need the Roads podcast. And David, do you know what I sacrificed for our podcast? Well, let me tell you, I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise I know I'll never see. And the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything. Well, no, thankfully I don't have to do all that to produce We Need the Roads. And David, as we're becoming a running quiz each episode, what TV show is that quote from that you've probably not seen yet?
Andor.
But you haven't seen that scene though, have you?
No, that was just a guess. Was I right?
Very good guess. Yeah, very good guess.
It's because, yes, you know why? It's because you kept banging on about some monologue, and that was a guess that is the monologue.
It is, in fact, Stellan Skarsgård's stunning episode-end monologue from Andor Episode 10, which Empire Magazine recently voted their show of the year. But I wonder, am I going to pick Andor as my show of the year?
Probably.
I have a feeling you probably won't. Well, no, you know, and I'll get into it as we go through the list. And do you know what, David? I think overall, TV might have been stronger than cinema this past year. That's my initial thought, with multitudes of amazing peak TV shows released. And like many, I could easily do a top 20. But actually, we're not going to do that. But you are going to get my long list, David, though. And however, I'm not going to go into too much detail on numbers 20 to 11, simply because I think your brain would explode and I'd have to wake you up at the end of it.
I think our listeners' brains would explode as well. And we'd have no one left.
Our listeners love knowing about things and stuff. But even before I get to the long list, David, I actually have to mention a couple of the shows I'm currently watching that are excellent, but that have missed out this year purely because I haven't finished watching them. So currently, from the multitude of stuff I'm watching, I finally started catching up on Bad Sisters on Apple TV Plus, which I'm very late to, and it contains the biggest prick of the year, so much so that episode 1 is actually called The Prick. Season 3 of Mythic Quest on Apple is amazing, and just as always, they always do a standalone episode that's something set in the past and to do with characters who aren't necessarily... They just did another one, and again, it was amazing. And also, there's going to be a Mythic Quest spin-off show coming in the next year or so. This was the year I finally got into Better Call Saul, but I didn't make it to the end of the series in time for when it actually aired a few months ago. And I'm still stuck around, I think, the end of Season 3, start of Season 4.
Wait, do you not have to finish off a show before going on to a next one? Like, could you not have to finish all of Better Call Saul before just, like, dipping into something else? Don't you get lost? It's like, oh, yeah, this is what, you know, don't you get lost at what you're thinking?
Well, no, because that's what recaps are for. Previously on.
I'm the kind of person that has to watch it in one go. Otherwise, I'll get confused coming back to it, or I just would never go back to it. So
what you're saying is you sound like my 70-year-old dad.
Yes.
Well, yes. The show that almost gatecrashed, right? The new Sylvester Stallone show on Paramount Plus, Tulsa King, which is a 40-minute, David. It's not even an hour long. It's 40 minutes. Comedy drama about an ex-gangster getting out of jail after 25 years. And it's from the team behind Yellowstone and The Sopranos. And, oh, man, it's so entertaining. Because you think, if you're Stallone's character and you've been in prison for 25 years, you don't know how mobile phones work. You don't know what Uber is. He in the very first episode, he goes to try and shake down a weed shop for protection money.
He's not been in a coma. How does he not know what a mobile phone is?
Well, I guess he didn't get them in... He didn't know what Uber was, okay? Look, don't pick a hole in it immediately. It's a brilliant show. And it's really funny and entertaining. And it's kind of got a bit of Ozark to it, you know. He gets put out to pasture in Tulsa, despite being from New York.
Tulsa?
And, you know,
what state is that?
I want to say Oklahoma. It's Oklahoma, isn't it?
Tulsa, yeah, that sounds about right.
But it's just so good, man. I think I'm 5 or 6 episodes into the first series now. It's one a week, and it's such an easy watch, and it's so entertaining. And you're just watching it going, oh yeah, this is fun, this is entertaining. And then there'll be a moment of horrific violence, and you're like... You forget how good an actor Stallone can be. He's so good in it. Like, I'm watching it going, you know, he hasn't done TV before, but good God, this could be one of his defining performances of his career. You know, this early part is Rocky and the Rambo.
It's not going to be, because ultimately it's not hit the masses and people haven't watched it to the extent that Rocky has. It would be like, I get what you're saying, but it won't be a defining point of his career, because maybe a personal highlight for himself.
I'm saying it'll be a highlight. You know, when you look at someone's career in stages, you know, the early days was Rocky and Rambo.
Yes, yeah. The De Niro stage, like where he's doing his comedies and it's a bit shit.
Yeah, and whereas Stallone's, okay, well, I'm going to go off and I'm going to do... and he's really good in it. His acting's... he can turn on a dime from like, jovial and hey, basically like Joey from Friends, and then suddenly he's
How you
he's
doing?
being very, very violent to people. It's just a great show. And also, I have just finished Wednesday on Netflix, which is excellent. It's got Scream's Jenna Ortega in it as the new Wednesday Addams, and Christina Ricci in it as well, playing, well, not Wednesday Addams, but, nice to give her a shout out in it. Oh, and I just watched last night the first episode of Yellowstone 1823 with Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. And, that's off to a good start as well. I'm quite a fan of that.
But you've still not watched Yellowstone. You've watched the 2 prequel shows, but you haven't watched Yellowstone. The reason why they exist.
Because there's 5 seasons of Yellowstone, and there was like 8 episodes of 1883, I think it was.
Fair enough. I understand, Neil. You don't have to explain yourself.
And I just need a quick breather before I get on to, well, the next part. And the next part is, we actually asked on Twitter earlier in the day for your top shows, and these fine people responded. The guys over at Seismic Cinema said House of the Dragon and Andor. Pretty much on brand there, I think, for both of us, right?
Yeah, I like those people.
And from one of the premier Nick Cage pods from Cage Fighting, they recommended Stranger Things Season 4 and Derry Girls Season 3.
Again, excellent taste.
Yeah, excellent taste. The podcast that nobody asked for, which is actually their name and not just me being rude, asked for if we could give some love to Upright Season 2. Which we haven't actually seen Upright Season 1, David, but we mentioned it on a couple of pods ago.
Yeah, you mentioned
that
it.
is the show.
Is it
Millie
Millie Alcock,
Alcock.
isn't it?
Yeah, Millie Alcock co-starring with that other Australian, Tim Minchin.
That other Australian.
And last but not least is Matt G from Matt Talika, UK, said, not a fashionable choice, but Peaky Blinders Season 6 was a fantastic conclusion with a rare TV ending that doesn't leave you with a bad taste in your mouth. And you know what I'd say? That's true. The final season of Peaky Blinders has been absent from many end-of-year lists.
Yeah, I've never... Peaky Blinders was a show that I struggled to get into it very early on. It's one of those film shows that I'm always like, I should really give it a try or go back to it. But then there's another new show that comes out and that just takes priority.
And I think, unless you're really, really into a show, the more seasons of something that's established now, it's like we were saying, like Yellowstone, it's just, I haven't got the time to watch 50 hours.
It comes back to my point of being victims of content, Neil. That's what we are.
We're just a victim of being victim of being content. Now, my long list is as follows. At 20, now on the iPlayer, Tokyo Vice. Based on the book by reporter Jake Edelstein, it follows the grimy underbelly of organised crime and Yakuza clans in Japan. Starring Ansel Elgort as Edelstein. It's a bit more dramatised in the book, which I promptly read afterwards, but the fact is it's actually filmed in Japan, and it looks amazing and really helps with the look and feel of the show. Season 1 is 8 episodes, and it's been commissioned for a second series. At number 19, we have The English, also on the iPlayer. Now, that's a 6-part Western filmed in Spain because of COVID, produced by and starring Emily Blunt as Lady Cornelia Locke, who ventures to the West in 1890 looking for revenge on the man who killed her son. She meets and teams up with Chaske Spencer's Pawnee ex-cavalry scout Eli Whip on her mission of vengeance. It's a beautiful looking show and definitely worth a watch. Next up, we got Reservation Dogs, Series 2. Again, Sterling Harshaw and Taika Waititi's brilliant comedy drama about 4 young Native American teenagers living on a reservation in rural Oklahoma returned for its second season. And that expanded to give more depth to the supporting characters in the show, yet still walked that great line between comedy and drama deftly. And the third series has been commissioned, and seasons 1 and 2 are available on Disney+. Have you seen any of Reservation Dogs yet, David?
No, I have not.
And the next one, David, is at number 17, Stranger Things Season 4. And what more can you say? It was basically the Kate Bush Metallica season, with Eddie Munson now being the fan favourite character played by British actor Joseph Quinn. Sadie Sink continued to show everyone else up with her acting, and it was noticeable that some of the weak young actors were sidelined in a van for much of the season. It took a big leap into the 80s with going full slasher horror and the introduction of the villain Vecna, and even a cameo from Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund. Now, the final season is scheduled to shoot next year, but that means we'll be looking at 2024 as an expected release date on Netflix, obviously.
Obviously. I am paying full attention to... whilst you were talking, I was just bringing up the pages on my list online, just so I could say right. How many episodes and stuff they were. This is all preparation that I should have done beforehand, Neil.
I know, which is why I'm doing the long list, because, that's just because I just know how you work, David. At number 16 on my long list, we have The Boys Season 3. And of course, Season 2 ended with the big fight between Homelander, Stormfront and Ryan against The Boys and Maeve, and that did not go well for Stormfront or Becca. And we got the reveal that Victoria Newman had been the person exploding heads, and of course Huey now had to go and work for her. Well, Season 3 is notable for many reasons, from the introduction of former Supernatural alumni Jensen Ackles playing the voice answer to Captain America in Soldier Boy. We had Stan Edgar and Newman carrying on their machinations, and Homelander basically stopped giving a fuck and just made a power grab at Vought, and it wasn't everything he really wanted for. Also, with more exploding heads and other body parts than you can shake a Herogasm sex toy at, Season 4 is currently filming, and I think we're going to be looking at 2024 again for the next series of The Boys. Seasons 1 to 3 are currently available on Prime Video. At number 15, we have Barry Season 3, Bill Hader's show about a hitman who wants to be an actor, which is, the simplest explanation of the show. But Season 3 of Barry exploded into action with Barry's past actions involving Henry Winkler's Gene Cusimano coming to a head and massively changing the dynamic between the two characters. We got some great skewering of how streaming TV works, following Sally's new show at a Netflix clone called Banshee, and of course NoHo Hank gets caught up in a war between the Chechnyans and the Bolivians. Episode 6 also contains a highlight bike chase of the season, and the show ends on a massive cliffhanger with, thankfully, Season 4 to come, and Hader's actually going to be directing all 8 episodes. And all of Barry is now available on Sky and Now TV. Well, at number 14, David, do you want a taste? Do you?
Do I want a taste?
Do you want a taste?
Yes. I do.
Well, that was a good choice, because from the amazing opening dance credit sequence to the performance of John Cena as Christopher Peacemaker Smith, I'm talking about Peacemaker. Yep, the show that had no right to be as good as it was, featuring tons of dodgy 80s hair metal bands and a frankly ridiculous plot. It was largely a success down to the writing and directing of James Gunn, DC Uberlord. If you ask the question, what if Iron Man was in the KKK, you would have your answer in this show with Robert Patrick's Despicable White Dragon. And that's before we even get to the great turns from Daniel Brooks as Adebayo, Freddie Stromer as Vigilante, and returning from the Suicide Squad film, Jennifer Holland Harcourt and Steve Agee's John Economos. Needless to say, it was a smash, and Season 2 is planned, with Gunn set to write and direct all episodes, and supposed to be shooting in 2023. However, with his recent job upgrade, I think I can't see how he's going to be able to write and direct 8 episodes of Peacemaker next year. So I think it may get paired off to someone else who worked on the show. What do you reckon? Did you ever get around to watching Peacemaker?
No, I didn't know. So I don't know why you throw to me on that one, Neil, and I have absolutely no idea. You know what I'm going to say? It's not going to happen, mate. It's not going to happen. It's dead in the water. Absolute dead in the water.
Hey, just because James Gunn has fired every single other person at DC in the last week.
Literally the entire thing.
Yeah, well, burn it down, start again, man. I'm all for it.
It makes me sad because I've not even seen half the stuff, and it's pointless watching it now. It's not pointless watching it now. Not everything's gotta be interconnected, but when you tease something and then that tease doesn't pay off, that's what makes you sad. For instance, the tease at the end of Black Adam.
Black Adam?
That makes you sad now.
Well, only if you watch Black Adam again. And it was fine, but it's not something that I'm going to, if I'm going to sit down and watch a superhero movie, I'm not going to go, I'm going to watch Black Adam, It was fine, but it's not something that's high up on the rewatch list for me. And it won't be now because, like you say, the old DCU is dead. Long live the new DCU. At number 13, David, a show you have actually seen.
Oh, shit.
Yes. And that is...
I've seen a lot of those on the list. In fact, a lot of those have made my regular list.
Yeah, so a recent addition to the list. This is Prime Video's brilliant and mismarketed psychological thriller dressed up as a horror show about a creepy kid. Except it's not, and it's got a star-making turn from Jessica Raine as a social worker and Peter Capaldi's enigmatic villain. Now, this is one of the cleverest, for me, scripted shows of the year, and all 6 episodes are currently available on Prime Video, with 2 more seasons commissioned, which after the events of the finale, which we won't spoil here, I can't wait for. It's just a shame the bad trailer made it look like a generic horror show.
Well, it might be on my main list, Neil. What if I don't want to talk about it?
Right, so at number 12, we're getting there, David, we're almost at the actual list. Can you believe it? Are you excited?
Bloody hell, we're only... How far into this? Everyone pull out the phones or whatever they're listening to and see what time we're at. It's about
I just told you it's 18 minutes.
18 minutes in.
Pull out your phone.
Yeah. Saying pull out your phones. See where you're at on the the little thing on the on Spotify or whatever.
And at number 12, a show from very early in the year. In fact, January 1st. And shows at the start of the year always get left behind. And this one, it did because it's not in the top 10. But that show is Martin Freeman's The Responder. Coming from writer Tony Schumacher, it's a gripping story of what it's like to be a police first responder on a night shift in a shitty part of Liverpool. With a career best performance from Martin Freeman, who absolutely nails the Scouse accent as main copper Chris Carson, Freeman really gives us shades of grey as he's navigated the seedy side of nighttime Liverpool. And it could have easily ended with a perfect final episode in season 1. It will be returning for a second series at some undefined point in the future. All 6 episodes are currently available on the BBC iPlayer.
The Responder.
At number 11, David.
Wait, the one thing that I could talk about, and you decide to move on.
It's because you've literally not talked about anything yet. So,
We
Responder,
need
you
to
saw
run
the Responder.
through our thing. No, the Responder became very close
Okay.
to being my number 10, but missed out. Just.
I have another, at number 11, the other show that didn't make it into my top 10 is another cop show, David. And this one is
Slow Horses.
HBO's We Own This City. No.
Oh, damn it.
No, We Own This City. It's about corrupt cops in Baltimore, and it's based on a non-fiction book of the same name by Baltimore Sun reporter Justin Fenton. And if you think, well, that sounds a bit like The Wire, well, then you get the guy who created The Wire to develop the book into a show alongside George Pelecanos. This 6-episode miniseries stars the Punisher himself, Mr. John Bernthal, as Sergeant Wayne Jenkins, a figure at the centre of all the stories and is a damning indictment of corruption at all levels in Baltimore police and local government. And I think there is just the one series of that because, again, it's all based on a true life story and it got to the end of the true life story. So I think we're one and done with that. But that show is currently on Sky Now TV. And now, David, on to the top 10s.
Oh, I'm so sorry, dear listener. You had to go through that entire... We promised you a top 10, and it's ended up being a top 20.
It's because I watched that many great shows, David, and I just thought our listeners had to know about these other great shows.
No, I understand, Neil. We just tell them to skip to this point.
I'm going to skip you. I'm going to edit you out. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but I am a master.
What do you mean you're not sure how you could do that? You just take the cutting tool and go, this never happened.
Indeed it didn't. Right, David, we are on the list. We are 21 minutes, 40 seconds into it. What is your number 10 show of the year?
Oh, okay, my number 10 is probably going to be... I'm going to guess now one of your top 5.
Okay.
But my top 10 is a Netflix show, Neil.
Uh-huh.
It's based on a comic.
Right.
That you like. You guessed it, yeah?
So it's the Sandman.
Yeah, it's the Sandman. There we go. I was waiting for you to just be like, it's the Sandman, but you didn't do it. We didn't work together, Neil. We're totally out of sync today.
Well, I mean, the fact you went, it's a Netflix show. When you said a comic, yeah, then I guessed it. But I mean, come on, you said it's a Netflix show, and you expected me to get it from that?
And it was a proper hit and miss whether it was going to get it in there with The Responder and Obi-Wan and other shows that I really enjoyed this year. But it's just about snuck in there with its rather more memorable episodes based around the death and stuff like that. It wasn't perfect, but it just snuck in there.
That's what she said.
Although I still haven't watched the Dream of a Thousand Cats episode.
Oh my god! So it's number 10.
The standalone episode that came out.
It's not really a standalone though, because it's some big important information drops in it, and it's a double episode. So it's Dream of a Thousand Cats and Calliope.
Yeah, I've still not watched that one, which may be why it wasn't further up. But
well, yeah, I might be talking about Sandman a little bit later on. But my number 10, David, is, and it's a show you watched that I forced you to watch, Derry Girls.
Ah, them Irish lasses.
Yep. I don't think you can say that. Irish slappers. Oh my god.
Does that just not mean those Irish women? Is that not something that you can say?
No. Google what the word slapper means, David.
Slapper?
I can wait.
I didn't say slapper. I said lasses.
Oh, okay. Well, then there's definitely been a big miscommunication.
I didn't say slapper, did I? I didn't say Irish slapper. I said Irish
It sounded
lasses.
like it. We will consult the tape, David, and I'll get back to you.
Roll it
Consult
back.
The tape.
Rewind it.
Roll it back. Yeah, earlier this year we saw the end of Lisa McKee's Derry Girls, which concluded with its third series and a 45-minute finale episode. Now, the show has always been an out-and-out comedy, but then it would hit you with the real-life drama of what was going on at the time when you least expected it. In the final series, we got the girls fretting about their exams, Erin thinking her mum's having an affair, a riotous episode set on a train to Portrush, and even a spooky episode called The Haunting. We even got a flashback to the girls' parents as school kids dealing with events of a certain night in 1977. And the final episode, The Agreement, deals with the vote on the Good Friday Agreement, and we catch up with all of our favourite Derry Girls 1 year later from the events of the previous episode. And it had a standout intro by Louisa Harland's Space Cadet Orla dancing her way through the town oblivious and carefree. And as I think we said at the time, David, what elevates this show from a simple slapstick comedy is the social commentary throughout. That it's layered perfectly by Writer McGee, and also it'd be remiss not to mention how many of us learned more about the troubles in Northern Ireland from this show than we actually did in school. A perfect ending to a great show.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. That you don't really actually get taught what happens, and that you don't even. And the show doesn't really go into it that much. It's sort of just a backdrop to it. Maybe we just went to the wrong schools.
I think it's part of that thing that when you're a kid, especially like, well, you know, I was a kid at school in the late 90s. You were a kid at the school about 2 years ago. It's funny that you learn more that once you kind of get out into the world a bit more. You're like, oh wait, our country isn't the good guys everywhere. We're not viewed as like the good guys everywhere. And yet, when you're at school and you're younger, you're taught that. You know, oh, we won this war. Yeah, it was great. You know, and I think a lot of people kind of, you know, let's say that's the point. The great thing of this show was to sort of, you know, how much they hated the English in it. But, you know, they had James in it as well, you know, the wee English fella, to kind of like be the sounding board and go, well, you know, look, it's not all anti-English, but I mean, it is now purely because of how badly we pronounce Irish people's names on this show.
Yeah, we've created enemies.
You indeed have, David. You indeed have. So, moving from Derry, where are we going to next for your number 9, David?
Oh, okay, hang on. Out of Sandman and into Middle Earth.
Okay.
That's right, Neil. It's the most expensive TV show ever made. The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power.
Power.
On Amazon. I don't think this will be on your list at all. I don't think it
Interesting.
will be. I don't think you liked it as much as I did, and it barely made my list. But anyway, Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, and I don't know whether to talk about it more because I'm not sure whether it's on your list. That's the problem with this top 10 list thing, because we're going to have similar stuff, and I don't know whether we can equally talk about stuff and then you're going to come up about it later.
If you've got notes, David, go to your notes. But also, you don't have to
Neil,
really say too much
Neil.
about Rings of Power.
You know I don't have notes, Neil.
With the Rings of Power, just give you a brief overview, but obviously direct the listeners to our 50th episode where we had a full hour and a half spoiler special about Rings of Power and House of the Dragon for more we
got into it.
in-depth.
That was enjoyable. Yeah, go have a listen to that.
So is that all you got to say about Rings of Power then, David?
Yeah, Rings of Power, number 9. Was a little bit disappointed with it, but with the sheer spectacle and how it brought the magic of cinema into my living room, I was blown away by the visuals, and it felt a crime to not have it somewhere in my top 10. And it was a fantasy show, and you know how much I like fantasy.
You do love good fantasy, David.
That's why, in fact, my first 2 shows have been fantasy shows.
Yeah, I'm quite impressed, quite pleased. Although it worries me for what's higher up the list. Well, David, we are going to go from Middle Earth with your number 9 show to my number 9 show. And there is a link, because Frodo himself, Elijah Wood, is joining the cast of this show for its 2nd series next year. What do you think the show is? Is that enough information?
With that information...
Without Googling.
No, I don't know. Wait, let me... Yes, I know it. Okay, I know it. Is it Yellow Jackets?
It is. It's Yellow Jackets.
I totally Googled
bizarrely, of course you Googled it, man. You didn't get it from that. So, bizarrely, this show made it onto my list at the exact same spot last year. Because I think I was about halfway through its run at this time last year, and I was really impressed with the show's mix of lost-style Survivors Trapped and Pushed to the Limits. But what marked out Yellow Jackets more was that we quickly returned to the modern day, and that kept us guessing which characters would survive. Because if we didn't see them in the present...
Hang on, is this even a show this year, then?
Well, half of it aired... We were literally at halfway point last year, right? when it was end of the year, and then the other half of the series finished in I think it finished in March or something.
Let me have a look here. I'm going to have a look at the episodes, and I'm going to call you out here, Neil. Season 1, 2021, 2021, 2021. Okay, 2022 from episode 8. You got three episodes.
From the end.
3 episodes this year.
Yeah, so I was free from the end so that's why it made my list stick year, because I was like, are they going to stick the landing? Are they going to finish out the season in style and get it right? And if not, then it would, But they did. Clearly they did, because it made my list again this year. And as I said,
according
what
to
marks
IMDb,
it out,
those 3 episodes have the highest rating as well.
Well, they were bloody good.
Of the rest of the season.
And I tell you, man, what marked Yellow Jackets out was that you have this kind of people trapped in the Canadian wilderness in the 90s, and then you have it's almost there, like the flashbacks there. So it's like reverse Lost. So you have the people in the past, and you're like, oh, are they going to live or are they going to die? But then you flash forward to the future, to the modern day. So each week you're like, oh, if I haven't seen that character in the present, does that mean they're going to die in the past? And so it kind of gets you on that each week, tuning in, going, oh, and then when the character does turn up, you're like, oh, hey, they don't die, yay. The show throws so much crazy at the wall, and most of it sticks compared to Lost as well. But its masterstroke is that it's casting between the younger and older actresses. You've got no weak links at all between the younger cast, and in a brilliant stroke of casting, the modern day cast. So the survivors, the girls the ladies who are in their 40s now. They are all played by 90s teen actresses, such as Juliette Lewis, Christina Ricci, and the superb Melanie Lynskey as older versions of the survivors. The show made great use of its 90ness. I have to use the term needle drop, David, because it had some amazing needle drops. The opening of episode 1 literally was Smashing Pumpkins today. Season 2 is due in March 2023, so not far away. And it's adding Servant and 6 Feet Under star Lauren Ambrose to the cast. Also, Simone Kessel, most recently seen in Obi-Wan and Our Flag Means Death, she's joining the cast. And yep, Frodo himself, Elijah Wood's joining the cast as well. But more importantly, will Season 2 continue to get the story right and the balance between past and present? And will it also get any higher than number 9 on next year's list? We'll wait and see. Have you even seen the trailer of Yellow Jackets?
Yeah, I watched the trailer because you kept talking about it. So I felt kind of obliged to at least look at what it's about. To be fair, it does look interesting, and you talk very highly of it. There's a part of me though, Neil, that when you speak highly about something and then you keep drilling and drilling and drilling into it, a part of me just wants to not watch it out of spite.
Okay, well, then you're just harming yourself, man. You're just, you can go and watch Clarkson's Farm Season 2.
Oh my god, Clarkson's Farm Season 2, that comes out really soon.
I mean, is it going to now?
He's not in the best space to really talk highly about him at the moment.
I think it might be delayed from whenever it was due for everything to calm down a little bit. So, David, we are moving on from the Canadian Rockies to where for your number 8 show?
Loads of different places, Neil, because my next show is not just 1 episode. It's 8 episodes of their own sort of stories. Another Netflix show, Neil?
I do. I've guessed it already.
Oh, tell me.
It is Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities.
You're damn right it is, Neil. Yes, del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities, whilst the, horror... Is it... I think... What's it called where every episode's a different...
An anthology. Horror
An anthology. I thought it was an anthology, but I didn't want to sound stupid and use the word. His anthology of stories collected and created. Was it wrong? Did you make me feel stupid?
I mean, I think you made yourself sound stupid by asking is anthology the word, and then
Oh,
saying,
well, you know what? Fuck it, I'm going with it. His crafted and curated horror stories, set each with different, completely different genre, completely different method, and way of.
Well, wait. You said genre. I mean, aren't they all horror?
Yeah, they are horror. No, some of them. So yeah, they're all horror. But then there's there's the thrillers in there a little bit. There's the little sci-fi mysteries, maybe not so sci-fi.
Okay.
You don't have to watch them all, but the ones that I would recommend watching, because you don't have to watch them in order at all. They're completely separate to all of each other. I would recommend watching Graveyard Rats, Autopsy, Pigman's Model, and The Murmuring. The Murmuring was my favourite one by far. What was your favourite one, Neil?
I haven't seen them all yet, but I believe isn't The Murmuring Jennifer?
Have you not seen them all?
Because there's been a lot of stuff to watch, man. And like you say, you can just tune in and watch one. The Murmuring, though, that's the one with Andrew Lincoln, directed by the Babadook Jennifer Kent, right?
That is correct.
No, I liked Graveyard Rats. I didn't like the autopsy one, and I really liked the first one. I really thought the first one was really good as well.
Lot 36.
with,
That was one of my least favourite ones. Lot 36.
I
See,
really
this is
like
what's
that,
so good
yeah.
about it. You know, I have this conversation with your friends out there, and which episode is your favourite, and that's why the show made my top 10 list, but not further up the list because some episodes, like the first episode, which I didn't think was as good, are weaker than others.
Well, see, that's the thing, isn't it? I think that's why.
Dreams in the Witch House is probably the worst one.
See, that's the problem with anthology shows. I mean, you're going to have a couple of breathtaking great episodes, but there's always going to be, and it's like I always use the Saturday Night Live example. Even in a perfect episode where everyone agrees all the skits are funny, it's different styles of comedy, and so not everyone is going to like all the stuff in it. And it's just like, there's different styles of direction, different genres within the horror genre. And yeah, you're going to have a completely different style and approach to the different tales that you see. So not all of them are going to be for everyone. And of course, that drags down the overall impression of the show, doesn't it? Because there'll be like 2 or 3 absolute highlight, brilliant, oh, you must watch this one. And then there'll be the other ones where you're like, it was all right.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why it wasn't... I think if there was more along like the proper good quality storytelling, really like horrors that stuck with you, it maybe would have gone further up the list. But because some of them sort of lacked in that memorable horror, it sort of just waned a little bit further down, and then I sort of settled on the 8 mark. I preferred it to Rings, so
yeah, you did. Right, so we are going to go from the horror genre to people being, well, horrific to each other, but in beautiful locations. Now, this is a show that has only recently finished in the last couple of weeks, David. And can you guess what it is?
People being horrific to each other.
Horrible to each other.
And it's only just finished. Where's it set?
That kind of gives it away. But I'll say it's a blackly comic drama about mostly rich white people being toxic to each other in a beautiful location. And it is something of an anthology show itself because...
I don't know. I don't know. Tell me.
Mike White's blackly comic drama, The White Lotus. And I almost moved this higher up my list. It was so funny. And this is what I said. The thing about The White Lotus is they're going to keep doing different seasons of it. And they'll be set at different White Lotus resorts. So season 1 was set in Hawaii. Season 2 is set in Italy. And the rumours are that season 3 is going to be set out in Asia. And it just absolutely rips the piss out of rich, privileged people. But it's just really funny as well, man. I thought season 2 was much more funnier than season 1.
Was much more funnier?
It was much more funnier, and they're proper words that people use, like... So, yeah, season 2, the action moved to Italy, and the show does make the most of the gorgeous locations, and it has a really similar structure to season 1, in that the very first episode of season 1, it opens with news of a death. And season 2 does exactly the same. There's a bit where someone's on the beach and goes, there's bodies in the water. So again, you kind of have that, okay, who's going to die each episode, And the show does a brilliant job of, as it gets closer to the finale, setting up, this person could die, that person could die. Aubrey Plaza's in it, playing Aubrey Plaza, but, no one plays Aubrey Plaza better than Aubrey Plaza. So she's just, deadpan, death stare at some of the people in it. She's really good. You've got Christopher Moltisanti from The Sopranos, Michael Imperioli. He's in it, and he's travelling to Sicily with his father and son, hoping to trace their Sicilian roots. You also have, as I mentioned, Aubrey Plaza. She's half of one of 2 couples whose relationship gets massively tested by the trip. And she's just born to play the passive-aggressive role in it. The only returning character from season 1, and probably a lot of people's favourite character, is Jennifer Coolidge, Stifler's mum. Do you remember Stifler's mum?
Of course. Everybody remembers Stifler's one.
So yeah, Stifler's mum, the great Jennifer Coolidge, returns as the very, very super rich and recently married Tanya McClure.
Doesn't she play that character in American Pie?
Not so much. This is a bit more pathos to it. You're equally sad for her, but then equally, it's such a great performance, and I think she'll get all the awards for it potentially because she's a horrible person. She's an absolute shithead to her young assistant the whole way through it. But then you kind of feel sorry for her. So it's a really brilliant layered performance. And as the season goes on, it's just hilarious. Like some of there's a line from the finale that everyone is just like screen grabbed and showing all over the internet. And I can't really say what it is because the line's a spoiler, but it's hilarious. And everyone is just like screenshotting this gif of this line.
Okay, tell me now, Neil, and then cut yourself.
She's like,
That just sounds stupid. To be honest, I've not even seen a trailer for it. I don't think I've not really seen anything of it. Where? I'm not even sure where to watch it.
It's on Sky and now TV.
Okay, that's probably why I've not watched it or seen much of it, because I've stopped paying for Sky Atlantic.
It also wouldn't be right to set a show in Italy without, actually casting some Italian actors. So you've got Simona Tabasco as a local prostitute called Lucia, who is always scheming with her best friend Mia.
Sorry, it wouldn't be right without casting some Italian actresses. So here's this one playing a prostitute.
Right, well, yeah, but she's one of the best characters in the show.
No, that just made me laugh. I don't know why.
And you've got her best friend Mia, who's a wannabe singer, and they're scheming and constantly running, scams on people. But they're so good. You got the I forget the character's name now, but you've got the slightly older lady who is the manageress of the hotel. I mean, she in the very first scene, Stifler's mum walks up to her and she goes, "Can you guess who I am?" And she's in an all pink suit. Do you know who? And she's trying to say to her, like, "Oh yeah, I look like this famous Italian movie star." And she says to the manager, and the manager goes, "Who are you? Oh, are you Peppa Pig?" Because she's all in pink.
Okay, maybe you had to be there.
Also, you don't actually have to see season 1 really to get season 2. So, because it's like I say, their idea is each series is going to be set at a different White Lotus resort somewhere around the world. But then the idea is they're going to bring back different characters. So, season 3, they're going to apparently bring back so many characters from season 1, and they're going to be on a vacation in Asia then. So it's just a really good show, man. It's really, really good. I when a show is better in its second series than its first, and like I say, season 3 is definitely happening, and it's apparently going to be set in Asia. So I mean, come on, you can see how much they're going to take the piss out of rich white people going to Asia and finding themselves and all the spirituality stuff. And you also great as well. It gives them a chance to cast some great local Asian actors in the show. But I wonder, can we get away, right, with having a murder be the kind of motif for the third series of the show? Because, I mean, people will just stop going to this resort if there's murders there all the time, right?
Well, you'd think that about, like Midsummer Murders, that village. How many murders happened there?
All of them, David.
It was insane. People just kept living there. Property prices must have been well cheap.
Well, now you know where you want to move someday. So, both seasons of The White Lotus are now available on Sky and Now TV. So, David, from the beautiful scenic landscapes of Italy with horrible rich white people, where are we going for your number 7?
We're going to Milwaukee with the worst ever police force in existence, trying to track down this infamous serial killer, Neil, by the name of...
Jeff.
Jack, did you say?
Jeff.
Okay.
Jeffrey
yeah.
Dahmer.
By the name of Dahmer, yes. Jeffrey Dahmer, or Dahmer Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. That is streaming on Netflix. That comes in at number 7 for me. The Ryan Murphy show.
Really?
Coming off his Glee and American Horror Story. And what else has he done? He does a mixed bag. Yes,
just does everything,
starring Evan Peters, who does a fucking terrific performance as Jeffrey Dahmer. This show, I was surprised as how far it came up. I didn't think it would make my top 10 because I spoke both highly and negatively of it in our full-on review, which if you want to read, you can't read it, people, unless there's a transcript.
Listen.
If you want to listen to, we have a previous episode. Is it like 3 or 4 episodes ago? Something like that, Neil. Neil, I'll let you know.
I thought you'd researched it and was going to tell people which listened.
Nah, I don't know these things. It's probably like episode 49 or 48. Anyway, it'll be tagged. What was I saying? It is the heart-wrenching story of a group of victims who've basically a community that has been terrorized by a serial killer. And it dives into the whole nature versus nurture element to what makes a man a killer. Is he born a killer? Is he raised a killer? Is he just pure evil? Is he sent from hell? Is he the devil incarnate, Neil? These are all questions that you will ask yourself and you will go through when you watch this show.
I mean, I'm not going to watch it, though.
As I mentioned, I was surprised it made it so far up. But There was one episode in particular that is a massive standout called Silenced. It is probably the best episode of TV I've seen all year, including pretty much almost all of my episodes. That one episode is probably the best episode of TV I've seen all year. But because the show as a whole isn't up there with the rest of the content, that's why it's only at number 7.
Right, yeah. I was like, wait, your number 1 show doesn't have episodes that are better than your number 7 show?
It's close.
Or an episode.
You know, I'm looking at it now, and I'll tell you what, I really liked that episode. It stuck with me for a while, and I tell you what, it's close.
Okay, that was bizarre. Yeah, I think we got into my thoughts on Dharma on episode 49, David.
Did you watch Dharma? I can't remember.
I watched the first episode and I was like, I am not bothering to watch the rest of this.
Okay, well, don't do a nil, people. You should continue to watch it.
Or, save yourself the rest of the time if you don't want to watch Get Inside a Serial Killer's Head, I imagine.
But a lot of people like that for some reason. Natasha loves it. It's fucking scary. If I don't return your texts, Neil, keep at me, because she might have got me.
I'm with you, what your other half's job is. I don't think anyone would suspect a thing, David. We just believe you've gone abroad to work, and then forensics, and then something happens while you're overseas, not at home in Folkestone. This just took a dark turn. Right, so we're going to go from dark serial killers in Milwaukee to a show set in Chicago, David, for my number 7, and a show that no one saw coming, which is one of the best shows of the year, even if we had to wait half a year for it in the UK, and that show is The Bear. Have you watched any of The Bear yet?
That was a no. Did you hear my sound?
The Bear was created by Christopher Storer and stars shameless US version, that is, Jeremy Allen White, who suddenly has to return to Chicago to run his late brother's failing sandwich shop. Now, he immediately clashes with most of the workers there as he tries to bring standards up amongst the staff and the menu. He hires a new chef called Sydney, played by the great Ayo Edebiri, who is massively talented but very inexperienced. And the story of season 1 is pretty much how he begins to win over the staff to his way of thinking, but also letting them express themselves as well, like one of the chef's markers who starts a quest to make the perfect donut. Now, what the show's plot doesn't tell you, though, is the speed of the editing in this show. It is breakneck throughout. Indeed, the opening montage of episode 1 makes Uncut Gems look like a Bob Ross video. And what's more surprising is that the show is only around 30 minutes an episode. There is no fat on this tasty morsel of a show, and it's amazing how they can fit so much into one episode. But, as I said, the pacing rarely lets up, so much so that when it does, you finally feel like you can breathe again briefly. There'll be a bit where someone goes outside for a cigarette briefly, and you're like, I can relax now. Episode 7 review is shot in one take, and it's a pressure cooker of an episode where everything that can go wrong does go wrong as an important critic dines at the restaurant. Now, I have to wonder if this show was in development before Stephen Graham's great one-take restaurant film, Boiling Point, which came out earlier this year. And then I have to wonder if the success of The Bear has made the makers of the film Boiling Point think, maybe we should make this into a TV show. Because they have, David. And so Stephen Graham is now developing a TV version of his show, of his film Boiling Point, which may have been one of the influences on The Bear, which they then made into a TV show, to now turn back into a TV show, and it's going to be on the BBC at some point next year.
It's just a constant loop, Neil.
It's just a loop, stuck in a time loop.
Now, soon we're going to get a Bear movie, and it's just going to start again from there.
And the spin-off with the drug money, Cocaine Bear. I know. It's the whole the Bear cinematic universe. Can you imagine if that's where the drugs came from like the illegal stuff from the drug dealers outside the place in Chicago? I mean, that's just crafting universes, my friend. Crafting universes. Finally, I would be remiss without mentioning the great soundtrack to the show. It's got some great 90s alt rock and grunge on there. The very first episode ends with Pearl Jam's Animal. You've got the Breeders, Counting Crows, REM. You've got some newer bands. You've got like LCD Sound System and some truly iconic greats like the Beach Boys, Brian Eno and John Cougar Mellencamp. Now, all 8 episodes of Season 1 are currently on Disney+, and we now await the now confirmed second season. So, from A Bear in Chicago to where, David, for your number 6?
We are going to California, I think.
California.
I think it was California. We're going to the world of the internet, Neil. We're going to Pornhub.
Hmm.
That's where we've gone.
What?
Yeah, you heard me. We've gone to Pornhub. We're going to porn, Neil. To witness the greatest love story ever sold. Have you got it?
I have no idea what you're talking about. No.
Pam and Tommy.
Oh, of course.
The Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee's famous sex tape, which was made into a TV miniseries by Robert Siegel and was released on Hulu. I can't remember what it was released in the UK.
Disney Plus.
Disney Plus, yeah. Which is weird. But, Disney's putting themselves out there to some weird content.
Mate, with Barbarian coming out the other
Disney
week.
and porn would go hand in hand, would you? But, I think Disney and porn go hand in hand quite nicely to some people. But, in actual partnership.
You're making it weird. Bring it back.
Sorry, yeah. Let me let me roll it back a few phases. Anyway, it tells the heartbreaking relationship and story of Pamela Anderson, famous for Baywatch, and Tommy Lee, famous being the drummer in Motley Crue, the marriage, relationship, drama, and the story of the famous tape being sold and how it impacted them both in completely different ways and basically tore them apart. Again, I was surprised by how high this made it up my list, but as I was thinking about it and I was drawing all my list together, this show just kept coming back, and I was drawn upon it. I was drawn upon Lily Allen's performance as Pamela Anderson. I thought it was fantastic. I was drawn to Sebastian.
Allen, did you say?
I did say Lily Allen. Lily James.
You did. I was about to say that's a career change.
Yeah. Lily James's portrayal as Pamela Anderson, and I was also kept being drawn to Sebastian Stan's Tommy Lee's penis because it's just once it's there, you can't get it out of your head.
I've got no words, David. Continue.
That was where I was going to end it.
Oh, and you was going to wait for me to come back.
Yeah, I just thought that'd be a good place to stop.
Well, you thought a good place to stop would be Tommy Lee's massive penis in your head.
There's one scene where it talks to you.
Yeah, I watched the first couple and then I just tuned out. I was like, it's fine, but there was more important, better stuff to watch at the time, I believe, David.
Nah, this was good. This was enjoyable. It was heart wrenching. It wasn't
better than The Sandman. I'll tell you that much.
It was for me.
Good God. Okay, well, from a talking penis to I can't even make a segue from this one, David. It's impossible. There is
impossible.
I do not know how you get from California and Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee to my number 6 show, which is House of the Dragon.
Oh.
I can see the look of shock on your face.
Dear me.
I can see the look of shock that I deemed to put House of the D. Oh, there's a link. We went from Tommy Lee to House of the D. Yes! Done it. Beautiful. So, yeah, I can see the look of shock on your face, even though we don't have cameras on, that I deemed to put House of the D at a lowly number 6. But why? Why, you might ask? Well, David, I think it's a great show. I just think there's 5 other shows that are better than it for me this year. And I know this is going to be probably higher on your list, so I believe we'll talk about it briefly then, when it... I'm assuming it comes up in your list. If it doesn't
bet your
come
ass
up in
it
David's
comes
list,
up later on.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure it comes up in David's list later, so we'll talk about it then. And if it didn't by some miracle, well, you can listen to our full in-depth spoiler thoughts on it in our 50th episode, which obviously you can see where you get all good pods from. So we're going to go from House of the Dragon to...
another fantasy show. You will never get this, Neil. It was mentioned in my anticipated top 10 of the year that we did, but you probably won't remember. It was on Amazon. It's animated. It's based off a famous podcast, and it's based off Dungeons and Dragons.
I know what it is, David. It's The Legend of Vox Machina.
Oh, shit, Neil.
In fact, you didn't even have to tell me the Dungeons and Dragons bit.
Wow. How did you get that?
Because I was going through our list from last year to see what we did, were talking, if any of the ones we were looking forward to actually ended up on our list. And I saw that on your list. I was like, oh yeah, that was the other thing that David mentioned that I hadn't seen. And it keeps popping up on my Prime.
Yeah, well, it's very good, Neil. Okay, so anyway, this is a animated series based on the highly popular Critical Role podcast, Dungeons and Dragons podcast, hosted by Matthew Mercer, the Dungeon Dad? Dungeon king. I don't know how fandoms refer to him, but anyway, he's basically just the voice of a lot of characters in people's favorite Dungeons and Dragons memories from Critical Role, and the show, Neil, was better than I anticipated. It is probably underappreciated and underwatched because people won't know the name because they maybe don't watch Dungeons and Dragons, or they think it's whatever. Maybe they're not familiar with Critical Role, so they're not keen on the idea of watching the show. The show's brilliant. It's a perfect mixture of action, adventure, comedy, horror, all rolled into one. And it is the characters that make this so special. Characters such as Scanlan. That's the guy, the little scamp. But anyway, if you're a fan of anything nerdy, if you're a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, if you're a fan of good storytelling, horror, laughter, humor, well-animated series, give The Legends of Vox Machina a try, because I don't think you'll regret it. And I'm pitching this as something that I'm assuming a lot of people haven't watched. But it was a massive passion project of the Critical Role team to get this together, to be famous enough to make the adventures, on-screen adventures, to appeal to a wider audience. And they've done it in such a fantastic way.
Do you know, I almost watched it the other night.
Did you really? You should just try it. Just give the first episode. In fact, the first episode is probably the worst episode. But if you like the first episode, then just continue with it.
Only because you told me they were quite short, and it was quite late, and my brain wasn't working because that happens at that time of night. And I just wanted something. And I was flicking through the flicker, the endless scroll, the doom scroll, and I almost watched it. And then I saw that there was an episode of the Always Sunny in Philadelphia podcast where they discussed the Nightman Cometh musical with special guest Lin-Manuel Miranda.
There you go.
Yeah, so basically the guy who wrote Hamilton is a massive fan of The Nightman Cometh. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this is only going to be like 20 minutes or so. It was an hour and 20 minutes, David. But it was an
illuminating conversation. You could have watched 3 episodes of Legend in that time, Vox Machina.
I know, I probably could have. But instead I watched the guy who did Hamilton talk about how he loves It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Okay, so from a fantasy land...
You threw away your shot, Neil. You threw away your shot.
We're going from your fantasy world we're going from the fantasy world of Vox Machina. Is it Machina or Machina?
Machina, I think.
No, that's a coffee.
Vox Machina.
Machina, yeah. Mochaccino.
I think it's Machina. I think you're putting too much emphasis on the A.
Machina.
Vox Machina. Fuck it. It doesn't matter. People know what we're talking about.
I mean, if they don't, they probably
won't. It will matter to these people. We should get it right.
Well, if it was on your show, perhaps you should have learnt the spelling of it. David, do you need some cream for that burn?
That wasn't a burn. That's what you consider a burn?
I mean, it reduced you to silence. You went quiet. You didn't know how to respond.
No, I felt sorry for you.
Well, David, you can feel even sorrier for me because at number 5 is another epic fantasy show. And yes, it's Rings of Power.
I'm so surprised you put Rings ahead of House of the Dragon.
And yeah, I think, as we mentioned before, the show is basically Morfydd Clark as Galadriel, leading a cast of relatively unknown characters and actors in the most expensive TV show of all time. And man, is the money on the screen. The show looks amazing, it's visually sumptuous, a feast for the eyes, and the script has cleverly kind of done an episode-to-episode mystery to solve, where, the whole thing for season 1 was, who is Sauron and who is the stranger? And I think the dialogue might be a little clunky in places, but episode 6, Undun, was my highlight of season 1, and I can't wait for season 2. And again, for our full spoiler thoughts, go back 2 episodes to episode 50. Now, any other thoughts on Rings of Power, David? Like, why have I got it
just
that high?
I genuinely, I know that our whole thing was don't pit them together, blah blah blah. But
I know, but
if you
finally
was to pit them together, House of the Dragon was the better show. So I'm so surprised that you've put it ahead, that you preferred Rings over it.
Do you know what?
You went style over substance, Neil.
I did. And as we've mentioned before, I think with House of the Dragon, the acting and the writing is better. But I think visually and directing stakes, Rings of Power. You can just see the difference in budget when you're watching them. I mean, neither of them are cheap shows, but when you literally are the most expensive TV show of all time, it just looks amazing, and they can stay on those shots. Also, it's a bit, for me, it's more of an expansive show. Pretty much most of House of the Dragon takes place in King's Landing, and it's a smaller scale than Game of Thrones. It's smaller scale than even Game of Thrones was. Obviously, though, they've got to spend the money on the dragons looking shit hot, which, fair enough. And the story is all based around the Targaryens, and at this point in the history of the show and the book it's based on, that's where they're seated. That's where they're set. So, but with Rings of Power, you're off adventuring here, you're off with these characters there. Numenor was absolutely amazing, man. I loved the Numenor arc of episodes. As I mentioned in our 50th episode, the fact they had the same director, I think it was Wayne Yip, do all the Numenor stuff and then come back for the finale was just awesome. But I think, as I said, I think performance, acting, script, House of the Dragon takes it. But just visual grandeur and just to sit back, turn your brain off and go, that looks awesome. Rings of Power's got it for me, man. And I think Rings of Power is going to improve as it goes on throughout the seasons, as we gradually get closer to the events that precedes The Hobbit, I'm assuming, isn't it? Before instead of Lord of the Rings. So, I knew you were going to pick this up. I knew you were going to be like, I can't believe you put Rings of Power above House of the Dragon. But I did, David. And so, just be Galadriel that I did.
I'm Sadriel. Anyway,
You're
that's
Sadriel.
an awful joke. Let's continue before I start getting angry.
And throw a ring into Mount Doom.
Well, before I get Homelander on your ass, because that's right. The Boys.
Oh, season 3 of The Boys is your number 4, David, then.
Season 3 of The Boys is my number 4. Or yes, my number 4. And I was surprised it didn't even make your list. When you were going through your long list and you mentioned The Boys, I was just like, fucking hell, how could the season 3 of The Boys not make Neil's long list? The Boys, every season of The Boys has gotten better and better. And season 4 just fucking bashed it. Season 3, sorry, just smashed it out of the park with the introduction of Jason Ackles as Soldier Boy, with episodes such as Herogasm and like the episode after Herogasm, which doesn't have as memorable a title. It's just What I Know. That's not really relevant. But it's had some of the best episodes so far, some of the most memorable episodes so far, some of the best gore, some of the best blood, some of the best stories, some of the best characters. The show just keeps getting better and better. And The Boys was standout this year. And if it continues along the coast it's going, season 4 is just going to be fucking insane. And it's so exciting. In fact, this is probably the most excited, my most excited anticipated show for next year is The Boys season 4, because it is.
But it might not be
brilliant.
out next year. We might have to wait till 2024 for it.
I know that's shit. It's shit. Anthony Starr as Homelander again just fucking knocks it out of the park. I mean, even their Twitter fucking page is like leagues above everyone else.
Oh yeah, their socials are bang on, man.
Yeah, they're so good.
As I said in my long list, man, what I loved about season 3 is Homelander just stops giving a fuck. He goes full, I don't care, I'm going to tell the people, I'm going to be myself, my real self to the people, and they still love him.
Well, that was at the very end. It's that meme that's just gone everywhere at the moment of him being like, oh wait, shit, people love me? Yeah, all right. That moment, it's just been overused on social media at the moment.
Well, I mean, you just see it early in the season, when there's a bit where the girl's on the rooftop and he's like, jump, fucking jump.
But anyway, without getting too into spoilers, where season 3 ends off and where season 4 can take off is going to be fucking exciting, and it's one of my most anticipated shows for next year.
Or the year after.
As I said, it just keeps escalating its material, gets better and better, and season 4 can't come soon enough, mate.
Well, David.
Rest in peace, Timothy, as well. I need to throw that in there.
# rest in peace, Timothy. I forgot about Timothy, yeah, man. I mean, the thing with The Boys is, man, I have read all the books, so I know where the story's going. So it's kind of like a House of the Dragon situation, David. They have made quite a few detours already. So, like, Black Noir's storyline was really well done with all the cartoon characters. The thing is, finding out who Black Noir was in season 3, that's not who he was in the comics.
Yeah, I know Black Noir.
Dude, you can't say that on the pod. That's a spoiler for like. No, that's massive spoiler.
Nah, it's fine.
Hey, oh my god, I'm gonna have to cut that. Cut David spoiling one of the biggest plot points of The Boys. Unbelievable.
Neil, I can't believe you cut that. Why are you cutting me, Neil? Stop it.
Unbelievable, David. I mean, if you didn't hear the spoiler warning, that was such a big spoiler. Even the spoiler warning doesn't do it justice, man. Just, oh my god. Terrible shithouse behaviour there, David. That'd be a red card if we were still talking about football, but we won't. So we're going to go from bad superheroes with god complexes and who like exploding people's heads to the Master of Dreams, David. Yes, indeed. My number 4.
Morpheus is out of the bag. He's out of the glass box.
He is indeed. At number 4 is, David, my most anticipated show of 2022, which means it didn't take the top spot despite being amazing. But at this point, all the shows are amazing on my list, as you can guess. Exit light indeed, Metallica, for of course it's Neil Gaiman's magnum opus, The Sandman, deemed by many for many years as unfilmable. The show was developed by Gaiman himself alongside David S. Goyer and Alan Heinberg, who's the showrunner. Now, having read the graphic novels a few times over, I was thrilled to say they got it right. And just even bringing it to the screen was an impossible task, but for the show to get the casting, the tone, and the visual look of the graphic novels so spot on, it was a masterstroke. For me, it's a season of 3 to 4 parts. The first 3 episodes are there to do the world building and try and explain the epic and elegant narrative that Gaiman is constructing. It has very much the feel of a Quest video game, you know. Once Morpheus is off on his journeys after the first episode, he's got to go and retrieve his mythic items. Now, this all then arguably, and this takes, you know, the opening 3-4 episodes, then arguably episodes 4, 5 and 6 for me are all masterpieces, and I would put any of those up against your episode of Dharma from this year, David.
This is your spoiler alert.
Episode 4, A Hope in Hell, sees Morpheus descend to hell and engage in a battle of wits with Gwendolyn Christie's excellent Satan.
You've blown that out of proportion, that episode. I didn't think that episode was that fantastic, that one.
I said the hell one was very good. I didn't say... I think episode 5, which is the shocking diner bottle episode, which is a brilliant showcase for David Thewlis's talents, that was amazing.
Yeah, that was the best one.
I was speaking to a friend of the pod, Charlie Gallagher, and he could not keep going on about episode 6, The Sound of Her Wings, which introduces us to Morpheus' sister, Death, as he tags along, and we see her go out about her daily job. And that's heartbreaking, that episode, man.
That was shot in Richmond, that episode. Just used to live there.
But that episode by itself would be like a standout one. Meeting Death and seeing her go about her day job alone would make this a standout episode because it's such a great performance by, I think it's Kirby Baptiste who plays Death. But this episode just gets better because it then introduces us to Hob Gadling, a commoner from the Middle Ages who dreams of eternal life. Dream just decides to give it to him. And so he says, okay, you know what? You're going to live, you're never going to die. And I'll come back and we'll have a drink every 100 years to see how life's treating you. And it was so great in its depictions of medieval life and modern life and how people are still essentially complaining about the same things in the Middle Ages as they do today. Yeah, generally it's the government.
Yeah, that was also a good episode. There was some proper golden moments in The Sandman.
I think the mid run of The Sandman was its best. Now, see, the last 4 episodes dealt with the Doll's House arc from the comic books.
Arguably, the best episodes of The Sandman are the ones where the actual Morpheus had the least involvement.
This is kind of what I think we spoke about this a little bit previously, where the Sandman himself is a construct that Gaiman's created to be able to tell stories he wants to tell about history and literature. And the Sandman, at its pure essence, is a show about storytelling itself. And so he is more like a device. Yeah, Morpheus is a device. You know, he's the king of dreaming. What are dreams if not stories, right? And as the series goes on, David, some of the best storylines are exactly the one, and and what will be some of the best episodes is exactly what you just described, where it's going to be Morpheus may just turn up at the end of the episode to like pass judgment on someone, and the whole rest of the story is just kind of like episode 5, the one in the diner, where he kind of only turns up towards the end of the episode. There's a lot of that in the comic books, but you don't care because you're really going, this story is amazing. So it's such a cleverly woven tapestry of a story. And as we mentioned, the last 4 episodes deal with the Doll's House arc from the comics. And as great as they are, for me, it was a massive tonal shift after episode 6. And it almost feels like a reset button had been pushed, which in some ways it had, because it was starting a new arc for the show. And like we just said, it was a different story then, but with some of the same characters. And it's frustrating as a viewer, because you want to see more of Joanna Constantine. You want to see more of Desire. You want to see more of Satan. You've got all these great actors and actresses playing these roles, but you only get a little taste of them in the first series, because we're on to the next thing. And then, just for shits and giggles, Netflix decided to give us an extra double episode, which aired 2 weeks after the show originally dropped. And it firstly adapted the Dream of a Thousand Cats story into an animated tale, and then you have the darkly, darkly disturbing Calliope story. Calliope? I can't say the word. Calliope. I can't even say the word I want it to sound like. It's that one. It's really good. For me, the only reason this isn't higher is because from episode 7 onwards, I don't think it matched the greatness of the mid-season run. For some people as well, it's been a bit of a difficult show to get into because of the way Morpheus, who is our main protagonist, isn't even in the main story. It's literally just like you said there, David. So for me, the reason Sandman isn't higher in my list and my top show, which it was my most anticipated, is because I think the show is spectacular from first episode to last and bonus episode, but I think it really hits a peak in episodes 4, 5, and 6, and when it changes to the Doll's House arc, that just isn't up to the level of what came before. So that's why for me the show is only at number 4 on my list of the year. However, after what seemed like a torturous wait, Netflix finally confirmed that season 2 is coming as well. So because there was so much online getting behind Renew the Sandman when it actually hadn't even been cancelled, but people just like, renew it, you bastards. You can't show us this and then not finish the story. Which, of course, we know they probably will, because we know what Netflix are like. I reckon they'll get to like season 3 or 4, and they'll be like, right, wrap it up. And season 1 is available with all episodes on Netflix right now. So, David, from The Dreaming, where are we going for your number 3?
Well, Neil, from The Dreaming to the Upside Down.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to Stranger Things, season 4.
So, David, I have to ask you, have you been running up that hill?
You know what? That song. It's when you first hear it, you're like, oh yeah, it's great, and then it's on the radio. It's like, oh yeah, that's great. It's always up, but then you fucking hear it again and again and again and again, and Jesus Christ!
Imagine how Sadie Sink feels. Do you reckon she had a different song on, and they just dubbed it over us because she's like, guys, look, I can't listen to this for 4, 5 fucking months, or we film this every day.
Just please stop, please. They're running up the road. They're running up the hill. We're running up the building. Yeah.
And apologies to Kate Bush fans, and well, in Kate Bush for that, David.
Yeah. Anyway, season 4, sorry, of Stranger Things hits my list because I bought a sword with David Harbour's signature on it, and I felt like I couldn't have it any lower than in my top 3.
Nothing to do with the fact that it ventured pure.
Oh no,
into
it's
horror
very
this
good.
season.
I like how all 3 stories are separate from each other and they all build to the crescendo at the end. I like how you've got Hopper's story of him being in a Russian jail. I like how you've got Eleven's story of her dealing with her father, being in a different town with the Byers family as they've moved out, and how they're dealing with, and her being manipulated again into using her powers to try and
By father.
Yeah, exactly. And I also like how there's the story back home with Vecna terrorizing and killing pretty much everyone.
Nightmare on Elm Street style.
Yeah.
Full on
And
Freddy Krueger in him.
the moment with Max where she's running up that hill. That is iconic. Iconic TV. That was probably one of the more iconic moments of television this year, I'd say, that moment.
I'd argue with you for that. I think the most iconic one is the Master of Puppets sequence from the finale.
Again, yeah, yeah.
I wonder how much money Metallica made back off that.
I think with Max's moment, there's threat there. There's a proper, even though I suppose in the Master of Puppets sequence, the character, spoiler
There's
alert,
threat. Yeah, spoiler alert.
dies at the end of it. With Max, you feel like there's more of a threat there because there's been the build up to how Vecna goes about killing people all the way up until that moment, and then you're like, oh shit, she's how is she gonna get out of this?
Next.
And then you see her legs break or her arm breaks or something like that, and you're like, it's fucking happening. We're gonna see Max be brutally killed, and it's fucking brutal as well. They don't pull any punches in showing the real. They lean into the horror perfectly this season. The horror is evolving with the characters and with the story.
But the stuff where her legs break, that was in the finale, not in the earlier episode.
In the graveyard, did she just suspend there?
Yeah. Because when that first happened, I was like, right, are they going to kill her? They're going to kill her. They're really hinting heavily they're going to kill her. I reckon they're hinting that they're going to kill her that much. They can't actually kill her now. And so I was pretty much, no, I'm fairly certain she's going to survive this. And then when we got to the finale and her bones started breaking, I was like, oh shit, no, they're going to do it now. And they still didn't. Although she is pretty fucked up by,
I do slightly disagree with your comment earlier about them leaning more towards the better actors.
Oh, no, sorry.
In the series and sort of leaving the lesser actors to the side.
Will was terrible.
Yeah, he was terrible. As in, like, well, let's not be. He wasn't at the same standard as, let's say, Finn Wolfhard. But
I'm sorry, but Finn Wolfhard's not very good either. They're both pretty bad, and that's why they've been shoved in the car with a funny stoner guy getting all the lines in their storyline.
Well, no, they were. Well, hang on a second. Finn was good. Noah had more of a. I suppose he's an actor that doesn't want to go in and continue being an actor. I think that's pretty obvious. Whereas
right, well, kill him off.
Finn is obviously somebody that's going to go on and have a very significant career. Well, they might do. They might do in this final season of Stranger Things that with the crescendo leads to at the end, and there's the big apocalyptic ending.
I when I was watching, I was like, this is clever by the showrunners because you've taken the weaker characters and stuck them all together and put them with
Mike
comedy
isn't
relief.
a weaker character, dude.
Mike
and the
wasn't
other one
it? No,
that's
Mike...
not as great as Lucas, and they gave him his own full-on story arc.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. Lucas wasn't in the van with them, was he? Lucas was with Vecna's storyline and all those guys. I'm talking about the guys who are in the pizza van for the whole season, pretty much.
That was like half an episode, dude.
No, it's half the season, man.
Nah, you need to rewatch it.
Yeah, you're not remembering, man. You're honestly
you
not
need to
remembering.
rewatch it.
You need to
Stoner Pizza
watch
Guy.
It.
That was like one episode. Admittedly, I've gone up from half an episode to one episode.
They were so worthless. Sorry, fans, but Finn Wolfhard's character, whose name it's Mike, isn't it? It's Mike and
Mike
Will. They were just Mike and Will. They were just worthless. They had no storyline. They were just there in the background the whole season. And like you say, Will was the main character. He was the focus of season one.
There was the relationship between them and how it's developed over the years, and how Noah blatantly has a crush on Finn's character, like Will has a crush on Mike's character, and how it's heartbreaking for him to see that he's fallen for Eleven, and that he's more friends with Eleven, and that it's an internal battle that he has. Come on.
Yeah, it's so internal. Hardly anyone realised.
Everyone realised. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone wanted to know more about Will and Will's sexuality and his relationship and his feelings for Mike.
Yeah, but how does that work in the thing of the show when you've set up the standard relationship, right? I mean, it'd be a nice surprise if they went the other way and like Mike was like, oh yeah, do you know what? I'm going to go off for Will. See you later, 11. That would be a surprise. Okay, do you know what? Do you know what it brings down to for me, man? It's the haircut. He's got Jim Carrey's haircut from Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, but that's because he can't afford a decent haircut. The family's very poor, Neil. You know what, Neil? You should pay more attention. You've got it wrong. You're way out. You're way out of this one, Neil.
Leave it. Let it die. All right, I'm going to send Vecna on you. Okay, well, anyway, David, moving from the upside down, we are going to Slough House.
Okay. Seasons 1 or seasons 2?
Well, here's the
thing,
thing,
managed to get 2 of them in 1 year.
A show so good, as you mentioned, David, we've had 2 seasons of it in the same year. And filming has just finished on season 3, and Gary Oldman said they're going to start filming season 4, which will be booked for, in February. Yep, that's right, it's Slow Horses, a great spy thriller that definitely manages to combine comedy, action, and drama perfectly in this show. It's based on a series of novels by Mick Heron, with season 1 adapting the first book, Slow Horses, and the currently airing second series, his second book, Dead Lions. Now, Heron has currently written 8 books in the series, and the most recent, I believe, has been written since the show has been airing. So now I wonder if he has the actors in mind when he writes to the characters, which would be quite interesting. So, the basic setup of Slow Horses is that Gary Oldman's Jackson Lamb is a slovenly wreck of a man who you would never want to share a meal with, who runs an MI5 station called Slough House, whose agents are, well, all basically fuck-ups, who no one else wants. Season 1 was Gary Oldman's showcases against every intention he and his team got dragged into a dangerous, murderous conspiracy. Also, a special shout-out for Kristen Scott Thomas, who plays the icy Diana Taverner, who is head of the proper MI5 house. And yet you kind of see they still have this past, almost not mutual hate / respect. Like, they can't stand each other, but they both know that they are really good at their job. They're always meeting clandestinely all the time. What we're talking about is one of the big spoilers, obviously, from season 1 was that at the end, when we look at the cast list, you go, oh, it's got, what's her name? The Queen Alison Hightower. Oh my God, I know her by that rather than that name. Olivia Cook. Right.
Yeah.
And we got there. So yeah, Olivia Cook was cast in this and in season 1, and then she gets shot in the back of the head in episode 2 and is basically on life support for the whole rest of the season. But then she disappears from the hospital. I think, I can't remember 100%, but I believe at the end of the series,
what's great about that and the shock of it is she's like, it goes against the norm of there being two characters of the same age, one being female, one being male. Oh, there's blatantly going to be this love relationship that goes off between them. And they even started teasing, oh, there's blatantly going to be this entanglement that goes on between them. And no, bang! She dead.
But she was never confirmed to die in hospital. They just, and because River, he goes looking for her at the end of the last episode.
Anyone that dies off screen is not dead, Neil. Everybody knows this. Secret of Hollywood. If you die off screen, you ain't dead.
So we're just waiting for Queen Alison to come back. I mean, is she going to be a Russian spy? That'd be an accent challenge for her.
Sleeper agent.
And I think we'll see if she recovers from apparent death and appears. It might not even, I don't want to read the books and I don't want to read up on it because you can if you want to. Don't be that person, David. Don't be that person. But we'll see if she recovers from apparent death and appears in season 2 or 3 or 4. I actually listened to an Empire Magazine interview with Gary Oldman recently, and he said they said, oh, what are you working on in between this show? And he's like, no, nothing. I'm happy doing Slow Horses at the minute. And if it was the last thing he ever did, he'd be quite happy to go out just being Jackson Lamb. I mean, they've written 8 books and they've already decided they're filming 4 of them. So that's pretty good going, man. And the one big difference I will say in season 2 so far, David, and it's not a spoiler, it's just a casual observation, and the biggest change for me is that, you know how cracklingly caustic Oldman's dialogue is? His put-downs are just legendary, aren't they?
Yeah, well, to be fair, it's a bit different from his last. What was the last thing? Mank, I think, was the last thing he did, wasn't it?
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, in season 2, all the rest of the Slow Horses sound like Oldman now when they're dealing with other people who aren't in this thing. So, like, the sarcasm and the put-downs, they've all got it now. So everyone's got, brilliant dialogue where they're like, and yeah, Oldman, and it's become a running theme as well, where he's sitting there eating food really sloppily. And the sounds, David, oh my God. The sound of him eating Peking duck in one episode is one of the most horrific sounds you will ever hear in your life. It's just horrific.
Okay. I will make sure to keep my ears peeled or plugged for that moment.
Yeah, when you see him in a restaurant, go, and earplugs, subtitles. And I wonder if it says slurping noises. Oh, so many slurping noises, David. So many. So we're going from a bunch of Slow Horses in Slough House to, David, where are we taken for your number 2?
For the number 2, we're going to the mysterious offices of
Lumin.
You know where.
Well, David,
Lumin.
Let me interrupt you briefly, because my number 2 also takes us to the mysterious offices of Lumin.
Oh my God,
Hey!
we agree on something. What's happening?
What's
happening? Okay, so we'll take a picture. Let's take a picture. Commemorate the moment.
Click.
Severance.
Done. Okay.
Are you
I've got
crying?
this
Neil?
stuff.
Are you blowing your nose? You're crying. You're emotional about it.
It's a beautiful moment, David. So yeah, what was my number 1 for most of the year, and that was only recently knocked off top spot, and that was Apple TV's mind-bending Severance, created by Dan Erickson and directed by Aoife McArdle and Ben Stiller, who liked my tweet of the show, saying we should have a workplace musical dance experience. Episode 7, Defiant Jazz. So, Wikipedia lists the show as a science fiction psychological thriller, and it really is a hybrid of many different genres. The setup of the show is that our characters work for a mysterious company called Lumen, who have something called a severance program, where the person's work life and home life are separated by the severance procedure. So their outside lives, called outies, and their inside life, innies, will not remember anything about the workday.
You
And that, my
basically
friend-
create a clone of yourself that's tied to you. There's a complete split.
And that, my friend, is creepy as all hell. So recently at work, I actually messed up because of this show. We had a client video to do, and the company was called Lumin, but with an I, not an O. So, of course, I spelt their name wrong because of this show.
I'm confused by the spellings. I'm not good at English,
So,
Neil, you know this.
It's spelt Lumin.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah,
in the
okay.
show, it's Lumon. So
Oh, okay.
I got the I and the O wrong. And that was a re-render, so that was fine. We got a bit talk shop there, but yeah. So the cast are uniformly excellent, with our main protagonist, Mark S, because workers don't have last names, played by Adam Scott, who I've been a fan of since Parks and Rec, and also check out one of his early shows called Party Down, that is also excellent. Then we got Zach Cherry's Dylan G, who loves the company perks. You got the great John Turturro as Irving, who's a stickler for company policy. And in episode 1, we meet new worker Helly R, played by the relatively unknown Britt Lauer, who is a great character as she's a great character because she essentially asks all the questions that we, as a viewer, have about the setup of the show. A special shout out to Tramiel Tillman's Seth Milchek, the most aggressively smiley work supervisor you have ever seen, and another star-making turn on this show. And that's before we've even got to Christopher Walken and Patricia Arquette, who are both superb as you'd expect. Now, initially I enjoyed the show, but after the first 3 episodes it was merely very good for me. And it's the end of a shocking incident that occurs at the end of episode 4 that then hooked me. And then each episode of the show got better and better and better every week until an absolutely fantastic season finale that absolutely knocked it out of the park. And without getting into show spoilers too heavily, this is a minor one. The through line of the first series is really about our 4 core main characters beginning to question what it is they actually do at Lumen. Have they made the right decision? And if they wanted to leave, how would that work?
Yeah, just the core premise of the show is enough to initially get you hooked for the first few episodes. But how it continues with the mystery, how it unravels little things at a time, how it becomes a master stroke in how to build tension. Short-term tension and like full-on like episodic long-term tension within the what 2 rooms you get for the entire show essentially
Pretty much, yeah.
is it's brilliant, and it is definitely 100%, if you've not watched it, worth watching.
Was this ever your number 1 show of the year, David? Because it was for me for quite a while.
Yeah, well, it was, yeah.
Until your number 1 came out.
Until my number 1 came out, yeah.
And David, pray tell, we're here, folks. We are an hour and 48 in, give or take some editing. And David is about to reveal to us his number 1 show of the year.
We are going back to Westeros, buddy. You know what it is.
Yeah, this is almost as predictable as The Last of Us being your most anticipated and favourite show of next year, despite you having not seen the show yet. Am I right, or am I right?
I don't know. I haven't thought about my most anticipated shows of the year for next year. Well, I've just said The Boys is. So, The Boys is. Next season of that.
What, you're looking forward to The Boys more than The Last of Us?
But, yeah, I am, yeah.
I don't believe you. I believe you've just doubled down on the lie.
No, I've not.
And you're
I've not. Anyway, House of the Dragon, the prequel to Game of Thrones, which I think everybody wanted this to be good after the sheer fucking utter depression, disappointment, shite, gobsmack that we were given for the end of Game of Thrones. And how it was basically insulting to us as fans, how it was insulting to George Martin, how it was insulting to everyone. How that show ended after being the best show on TV to what we got. It was sad, Neil, right? You were sad about it as well, correct?
No, I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was as good as previous seasons.
It became complete style over substance. The characters. Anyway, I won't get into it. We need to do a fucking Game of Thrones last season rant episode where I can just go fucking hammer and tongs. I was desperate for House of the Dragon to be good. I wanted it to be successful. I wanted it to bring back the magic of Westeros, the fantasy, those grey characters that Game of Thrones brought, the politics, the scheming, the backstabbing, the dragons, everything. And I am absolutely fucking thrilled that it was as good as I wanted it to be. In fact, in some ways it was better than I wanted it to be, because I didn't think it could do it. I didn't think it would be able to pull off being as good as Game of Thrones, but it is. And George R.R. Martin himself has fucking praised the show. He's praised Paddy Constantine's performance as King Viserys, the first Targaryen. He's said it's better than what he's written in the book, what he brought to the character. Matt Smith's Daemon Targaryen is a fan favourite who is just the most grey character that is in the show. And everyone fucking loves him for it because he's a badass, basically. He's capable of the most horrendous and beautiful things. And that's why he's stand out. Matt Smith as his performance is again amazing. Rhys Ifans as Sir Otto Hightower. There's not a bad performance in the entire show. How they deal with the time jumps in the casting between Emily Carey and Olivia Cook to Millie Alcott and Emma Darcy. The entire show is flawless for me. I genuinely fucking loved it. I loved how it brought the Game of Thrones, which was very wide at the time, and trying to make it more of a concise, smaller tale in having it be in 3 locations, essentially. King's Landing, the Stepstones, and Dragonstone. I think there might have been a few other, locations sprinkled in there, but it wasn't much. And this story, I know where it goes as well, and it just gets better. House of the Dragon, Neil, is my number 1. And I am ecstatic. Loved every moment of it. Scheduled my day, time, work, everything around this show.
Monday nights in the UK.
Well, it just sort of came out. You can watch it whenever, couldn't you?
No, well, it's on. It's on Sky now, so it'd be on at 2:00 in the morning as it went out in America live.
So you could just watch it any time on the Monday morning.
You're not that a dedicated fan, Dave, because you'd be watching it live at 2:00 in the morning.
No, I wasn't that dedicated a fan, no, admittedly. But I was a fan. I loved it. House of the Dragon, may it forever reign.
Yeah, I mean, for me, right? Yeah, it's number 6 on my list, and I know you already got that look on your face again of like, I can't believe you put it at number 6. But
I feel like you did it just to piss me off.
No, I did. I put Rings of Power at number 5 to piss you off. No, I didn't. I genuinely enjoyed. I would genuinely, if I had to do a rewatch of either show at the minute, I'd do Rings of Power just because visually it's more stunning. I'll tell you the one thing, the only negative thing I can find with House of the Dragon, and why it's a little bit lower down my list, is because there's very little humour in it compared to the original Game of Thrones, and that's my main kind of bugbear with it. That's literally the only thing, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because I don't think it needs to be funny in places, but you don't have a Tyrion character, you don't have even like the banter. It's all quite, and I get it doesn't have to be the same show, it's a very different story they're trying to tell. So obviously you're not going to have the funny bits in it.
We speak quite in depth between the two of us on House of the Dragon in our 50th episode. So I feel like if people wanted to really go in depth on what we thought of House of the Dragon, my love for it, your indifference for it, I think that's the best place to go.
Indifference, I think it's a brilliant show. Just not in my top 5. And my number 1 show of the year is another show that took a few episodes to get going, but then once it did, it improved exponentially until its finale. And that show is the same show as Empire Magazine's number 1 show of the year, and it is Andor. And let me read for you, David, what we said about Andor in our 2022 preview from the start of the year. The least anticipated Star Wars show about Cassian Andor, Diego Luna, reprising his Rogue One character. I mean, a show about a character that we already know dies in Rogue One is off to a bad start for me. Still, it does have Baron Harkonnen, Stellan Skarsgård, Fiona Shaw, and Forrest Whitaker returning as Saw Gerrera. Hey, we all thought Hawkeye was going to be shit as well, but more importantly, will it be better than the Book of Boba Fett?
Yeah,
well,
you had a mare
that was what
here,
I wrote.
Man. You've had a mare with Avengers. I've just watched The Eye, so I'm up to episode 7 is my next one.
Oh, good. Oh, right. You're just about into the good stuff. Now, look. Well, it just wasn't better than the Book of Boba Fett. It was better than Obi-Wan Kenobi. And for me, it's arguably the best Star Wars property since the original trilogy. Now, look, I love The Mandalorian like everyone else, but comparing the two shows is like comparing Teletubbies to Schindler's List. The Mandalorian skews much younger with the adventures of Mando and Grogu, and is slavish in its fan service, and it's got amazing cameos in the earlier seasons. However, Andor is a dark, morally ambiguous show that has you questioning who are you rooting for every episode. The series charts Cassian Andor's path from low-level thief to a rebel spy and will take place over 5 years of story to take us to the events of Rogue One, and that is going to be spread out over 2 12-episode seasons. And for me, the single biggest difference is the quality of the writing by showrunner and creator Tony Gilroy, which gives some great actors some amazing dialogue, and let's be honest, Star Wars overall is not known for its high-level monologuing or acting performances.
All good scripts in general, really. Let's face it.
They were built on spectacle and space battles. Plain and simple good versus evil, like, you know.
Well, outside of the original trilogy had some good moments, had some good lines, had some good
And that's why I say, outside the original trilogy,
Yeah.
this is the best Star Wars in any form for me. The fact that Gilroy writes every episode himself shows that this is much more of one man's vision than a season put together by a Disney committee, like the other shows feel like. What makes this show work is that the characters and dialogue are so well written, and the story Gilroy's telling is so good, that you could easily remove all the Star Wars machinery from it and set it in World War II, and it would still work. It's a simple story about monolithic evil slowly encroaching, with the average person not realizing about it until it's too late, or that the actions of the Empire, or when the actions of the Empire begin to finally affect them personally. What's surprising, and for me the show's biggest strength, is how un-Star Wars it feels. For example, very little mention of the Force, the Sith, or the Jedi. The show focuses on the day-to-day minutiae of the expanding empire, and it feels more like a high-end HBO premium drama than a Star Wars show. I do think younger audiences whose only exposure to Star Wars is the Baby Yoda show will absolutely not like this show, but at last we do have what people have been crying out for years, a grown-up adult Star Wars show. I mean, the very first episode involves Andor looking for a sister in a brothel before murdering 2 security guards that then puts him on the run for the rest of the season.
Go on. Well, no, seeing you've dicked on my list of some of my higher ones, I'm going to dick on this one for a bit.
Okay,
because we've not spoke Andor on the show yet. And whilst I have enjoyed it from episode 3 onwards, so 3, 4, 5, and 6 of what I've watched so far is great. However, 1 and 2, I fell asleep during episode 2 twice. Episode 1, I watched it and then was just like, you know what, this show's not for me. I'll try and give it another go because, you know, I feel like I should. But it wasn't great. So I've got to watch a bad short movie until a TV show gets good. Which it's not, I'm not about that life, Neil. I don't understand why I should have to watch a bad opening movie.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
It
slow.
was Neil. It was.
No.
I shouldn't have to watch a bad movie until it gets good. You know, it's like saying there's this amazing TV show that starts from episode 1. It's fucking fantastic, but here's this fucking really shit hour and a half thing that you got to watch just to understand it.
With all due respect, you're wrong and you're talking out your hole.
No. It is. Did you think the first 2 episodes were good?
I thought they were fine, but I thought they were slow. And I think bad and slow...
do you not agree with me that you shouldn't have to watch 2 bad episodes, basically a short film, to...
Because this gets back to one of our regular arguments that we always have, whereas you think a show has to grab you by the balls straight away and drag you in, and I think a show's can take time to build. And I'd agree, Severance was the same. I liked the setup of Severance, but I didn't think it was going to be one of the shows of the year and from the first couple of episodes. But then once it hit that mid-run, like from episode 4
Yeah, but
onwards,
it managed to keep you going up until that point. If it wasn't for
Yeah,
you
but-
banging on about Andor, I would have stopped after episode 2. And I wouldn't have tried.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have bothered with 3.
But haven't you like seen online the buzz around the show that how... I mean, the fact that Empire
Yeah,
I've
seen the buzz online, but I shouldn't have to rely
you
on
should. It's called patience, David. It's called
word
it's
of
called
mouth.
patience.
I shouldn't have to rely on that. I should rely on the content that's in front of me. And if the content in front of me isn't good enough to grip me early on, why would I continue watching it? Why would I put my faith in something that's not been good from the outset?
Not all stories.
Do I need to believe
certain
Neil?
stories?
Do I need to believe in the Force?
What you need is to believe in a showrunner who is slowly telling a story and expanding it outwards. Yeah, I wasn't blown away by the first couple of episodes. I was like, oh, they're fine. It's better than Obi-Wan, at least. It's better than Boba Fett. It doesn't feel like Star Wars, and the fact it doesn't feel like Star Wars interests me. And that's why I kind of... And actually, this kind of gets onto my next point, actually, which is the show is notable for not being filmed on the volume. The volume, for listeners who aren't aware, is ILM's replacement for green screen, which every previous Star Wars show has used. It essentially uses a massive curved LED screen to create photorealistic backdrops so that shows can all be filmed in studio rather than out on location. However, once you're aware of this, for some people, it can take away because you know that almost nothing in the shot you're looking at, bar the actors and the odd foreground prop, is actually real that you're seeing. Well, Andor is about as real as you can get. It's got tons of location filming throughout England and Scotland, and it just feels so much more cinematic and epic on screen and real when you're watching some rebels hiding in the Scottish mountains and a TIE fighter just buzzes overhead. It just... it just dragged me in so much more. And getting back to your point about the first couple of episodes here, actually, David, Gilroy himself said that he wanted to drop, and they did, they dropped the first 3 episodes in one go, because he said each set of 3 episodes make up its own separate arc, and each 3 episodes will make up that 12 season, and that there'll be, slight time jumps between each one before we obviously get up to the events of Rogue One at the end of season 2. Right. So, he knew that it was a slow show to get into. He knew it didn't grab people from the right away. So instead of just putting out 1 or 2 where you'd be like...
Probably one of
and
the
like you
best
said,
decisions that they've done. I wonder if there would have been less people watch the show, more of a drop-off if it was an episodic release and they'd have got 1 and then they'd have got 2 and then the people would have lost faith instead of being able to just binge all 3 in one go.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. You're like, oh, you should grab me from straight away.
No,
Well,
it's a good smart move to drop all 3, but if you're dropping all 3 because you know it's a slow start, because you know the first 2 episodes aren't good, that's not the fucking best thing to be shouting about, is it?
And here's the difference, right? You're saying not good is the same as being slow. I'm saying...
No, I'm not saying slow is not
You
good.
are. You're saying...
No.
you're saying
I don't
you're
mind
saying,
a slow burn TV show. I just watched Licorice Pizza. It's the slowest thing on earth. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. It's not fucking fast. Nothing really happens in it.
Yeah, I love films like that.
But it's really enjoyable. It doesn't have to be slow to be good. It's just got to be good. It wasn't good.
It was good. I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it, and the show intrigued me enough to keep me in. And then, wow, is that rewarded? So, okay, let's get on to casting quickly, because this show is chock full of well-known British TV. Is chock full of well-known British TV and stage actors, such as the legendary Fiona Shaw as Marva Andor, Cassian's adoptive mother. You've got Denise Gough as Deidre Miro, a supervisor for the Imperial Security Bureau. And you've got Anton Lesser as Major Partagaz, the head of the ISB. And do you know what else we get in this show, David? We get regional accents in a Star Wars show instead of everyone speaking in the same pronounced English accent. That just grounds it so much more in reality, even though it's Star Wars, that you've got, oh, that guy's Scottish, or that guy's Northern, that guy's, got a bit of a Southern accent. It's brilliant. And what this show does so well is paint all the characters with shades of grey so that no one is truly evil or good, and those lines get increasingly blurred as the series progresses. And of course, if you look at the original films, Luke Skywalker wears white, Darth Vader wears black. It's straight good versus evil. And this is much more of an adult show in saying, well, look, good people do bad things and bad people can be good. And it's really what brings the show up a level. For example, right, have you met the character of Deidre yet? She's
is
a
she
blonde lady
blonde?
with a hat. Yeah.
Is she relatively
She-
young?
Yeah, she's the only female officer in the ISB. You know when they're having all the
Yes.
meetings?
Yeah,
with,
I know the one. Yeah, I have met her. Yeah.
Right, so her character is so good. And it's funny, right? Because you're like, well, she's an Imperial, so she's a bad guy. But she's having to deal with all this sexism from all these blokes. So we're on her side a little bit because she's a woman and we want to see her succeed. Yeah, when she gets some power, she's just as bad, if not worse, than the men. And the show kind of pulls you back and you're like, well, but we liked her. Now we can't because of stuff she does. One of the best characters in the whole show is Stellan Skarsgård's Luthen Rail. And although a good guy and one of the rebel leaders, his methods grow continuously darker throughout the season. He'll think of nothing about sending innocent men to their deaths because he knows that it's a bigger plan. So he has to make these decisions. That's kind of the episode where he has his great monologue. And what he does, he says, he goes, look, I have to use my enemy's tactics against them. And, you know, he keeps trying to get them to react even more viciously so he can use that reaction to bring more people to the rebel cause. Like I said, honestly, mate, his episode 10, One Way Out, his epic monologue that I started the whole show with about sacrifice, honestly, for me, it's the best acting we've ever seen in any Star Wars ever. You're watching this and you're like, this is like an Oscar-worthy performance. This is like an awards-worthy performance, man. And yet it's in a Star Wars show. Even the smaller characters are expertly written here. And you wonder where their arcs are going to take you. For example, do you remember the Imperial guy at the start, the busybody? Cyril Khan, played by Carl Sawyer, the American guy. He's the guy who's working there at the start, and he pushes back against his lazy bosses who want to hush up the first episode's murders. And so here you think, okay, well, even though they're Imperials, and we want to get behind this guy a little bit because perhaps he could end up going to the rebels because he does, you know, he's a bit of a job's worth, but he wants to do stuff properly. He doesn't want to reward, you know, he doesn't want to work for these lazy people. He's got that drive and determination that potentially can be heroic qualities. But as the season goes on, his character, I'm not going to give you spoilers for him, man, but he's got such a weird character arc that every scene he's in, you're just like, I can't tell whether this guy is one of the creepiest motherfuckers I've ever seen in Star Wars, or he's going to end up becoming a spectacular hero. And it's just, it's such a great performance. Where you're up to in the show, right, you've seen that he lost his job, haven't you?
Yeah. He's gone back to live with his mum.
Right, so the breakfast scenes of him eating cereal and getting shit off his mum are hilarious, man. And that's what I mean. You don't expect humour in this kind of stuff, but it's the passive aggression between the two of them is brilliant, man. Like I say, this show really makes you question who you are rooting for and why as the episodes go on. Now, for many, the undoubted highlight of the season is what you're coming up to, David, and it's the Narkina 5 prison arc. And it's where Andor's wrongly arrested under the great fake name of Keith Gergo, and he's essentially imprisoned on an ocean work campsite for 6 years. And you're just like, wait a minute, what? And like visually, the show literally looks like Severance when you get in there as well. And he meets the prison's floor manager, who's called Kino Loy, and he's played by Andy Serkis. And again, in that episode 10, Serkis' performance is so good, he's in with a shout of an Emmy nomination. So you're watching this going, Andy Serkis is really fucking good in this show. He's just like, come in, episode 6 or 7, and he's just fucking brilliant. He's so good. And then at the end of that episode, you have Skarsgård's speech, and you're just like, holy shit, man. This is the best acting I've ever seen in Star Wars. Honestly, man, I cannot talk enough highly about this show, and as I have been. And it's the best Star Wars property for me since the original trilogy in terms of acting and writing. It's parsecs ahead of any of the more recent Star Wars output. And we just have to wait over a year and a half, for the second series. And then, well, luckily for us, because it's been renewed, we don't actually have to worry if anyone has actually watched it. So, David, are you actually going to finish it? Are you going to power through over Christmas?
No, I will do eventually. I just need to find a time. It's not a power through. I'm quite enjoying it now. I've got to a certain point where it's decent. But I'm just waiting on, like, the time where I've got time by myself and, you know, a spare hour to watch an episode.
Right, well, I think that's all the time we have for today at We Needed Roads. And remember, the best Christmas present is a glowing 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice, and then super yachts and money. So it's Merry Christmas from me and David, and we'll be back very shortly Not in this episode, on our next episode, with our top 10 movies of the year pod. So, see you next time.
Have a holly jolly Christmas.
We needed roads.